In a world where EA slowly but surely has changed from early access to exceptionally appalling, it's nice to, from time to time, have a game that actually functions relatively well in its early access state. Into the Dead, Our Darkest Days is a side-scrolling horror-based action-adventure game revolving around two of the scariest things in the world, zombies and Texas. I've spent roughly 40 hours with its early access and will, as concisely as I can, review what's good, what's bad, and what I would like to see implemented on top of its current state. The game can be divided into 3 sections: Scavenging, Base Building, and Survivors. Let's start with Scavenging. Every day or night cycle, it's up to you to choose one of your party members to be sent out into the city of Walton to look for supplies. These supplies can range from weapons to medical items, but also base resources to upgrade your shelter, or certain stimulants to make your party members deal with certain mental states, something we'll address more in depth later in the video. During these supply runs, you are not alone. Believe it or not, but no, this is not real life footage of Los Angeles, it is sincerely Texas in 1980. A setting that, as far as my European ass, who has never been in America, let alone Texas, can tell, is a pretty accurate representation of it, apparent by both the abundance of cowboy hats but also the normal gas prices. You will be harassed during these supply runs by zombies, I know, who would have thought, which you can either avoid, stealth kill, or just fight face to face. The former two speak for themselves, whilst the latter leaves quite a bit to be desired. There's only one attack button and one dodge button, meaning that the combat is not just unrecommendable because you are weak and the zombies are strong, but also because it's just kind of boring? I'm not expecting a crazy in-depth Mortal Kombat-like fighting system here, but at least something like blocking or charged attacks would be quite welcome. Nonetheless, finding them is not recommended, as you'll easily get overwhelmed or grabbed when trying to run. There are also guns, which are very rare to find. Once found, they are also often broken, which means you have to repair them first at a workbench, something we'll get to later. The game heavily advises against using these due to the sounds they make, which would attract the zombies, but I found this to not be too problematic of an issue in all honesty. And they're also just so insanely strong that it doesn't really matter too much anyways. Nice additions, in my opinion at least, would be things like crossbows or slingshots, or, another nice one, ways to lock doors to trap zombies into certain rooms, like tie wraps, or maybe losing your melee weapon to like lock the door or something like that. I don't know. As mentioned previously, the game is a simple 2D scroller, but you'll often run into various problems because of this. Sometimes you won't know if zombies are in your path or just part of the background. The zombies in the background cannot be killed, but can be activated, so to speak, to chase you down. It's hard to see when you're in the zombie's line of sight, but accept this pro tip: as long as you're on any flight of stairs, absolutely nobody can see you, like ever. Not even when you bump into them. Whenever the game feels like it doesn't have that much to offer except for just scrolling left to right and looting things, it throws the occasional element of surprise in there to keep you on your toes. This could be things like zombies bursting out of hidden locations, car alarms suddenly going off, but also interactive options like dropping an entire car lift on top of zombies. These are a very welcome change of pace, but the game could definitely use a lot more of them, as I, first of all, only encountered about like a handful or two of these so far, and second of all, the zombies are quite brain dead, pun intended. And yeah, sure, makes sense, they're zombies, I don't expect them to perform high levels of intelligence, but you get the point. Some additional surprises or just gameplay elements in general would improve the fun factor quite a lot. At one point I got hit with a heat wave, severely impacting character statuses during daytime scavenging runs. Like, yes, more of this, please. Something else that is most definitely noteworthy is that the atmosphere and the environmental storytelling are absolutely amazing. Like, the overall vibe is sincerely pretty fucking spooky. All of the zombie sounds are just flawless. And the thing I probably like the most, even though, once again, the game could use some more of this stuff, are examples like these, where you cross a room and there are like zombies strapped to beds, which is already scary enough. Cool, you move on, and then during the same mission, you get back there later, and then you're like, excuse me, hello? Weren't there zombies here? Only for them to have escaped and then suddenly attack you. It's really good. There are 3 difficulty settings, which can be summarized as follows. On easy and normal, the game becomes a joke. Damage from the zombies is barely noticeable, the chance of getting infected by that damage is close to 0, and weapons, supplies, and just food are so abundant that the entire essence of scavenging is essentially removed. Hard difficulty, however, is the complete opposite of that spectrum, as you could spawn into an area where all of the surrounding starting locations sincerely just have no weapons or any food to find. The zombies also get a shit ton of additional health here, so you better bring your whole arsenal of weapons when trying to clear a location. You might be thinking, isn't there a middle ground? Thankfully, yes, as the developers have implemented a custom difficulty in which you can tailor everything to your liking. I will say though that hard is probably the best way to experience this game in full. It actually forces you to make some tactical decisions, like baiting zombies and then retreating, or using your hands to fight instead of a weapon because you don't want to risk it breaking. Breaking weapons, or just durability in general, is something I've seen quite a lot of complaints about, but I disagree with this. The game is built around you finding and crafting weapons constantly, so them breaking relatively quickly makes sense to me. You might be wondering, why even do all of this? What's the point? Well, like any other zombie game, a combination of both survival and trying to escape. There are currently only 3 possible escape plans, and even though all of them differ from each other, I sincerely don't know if they're really worth 3 different playthroughs. But I'll address the reason why I say that in the base building part of the video. Now, just last but not least, the gameplay in general is still very janky and a bit buggy. It's early access, sure, but in a game like this one, where even the developers tell you, hey man, one mistake could cost you the entire run, and where there is no manual saving, just auto-saving, it's especially annoying to die if you, for example, want to close a door, but the game doesn't allow you to, resulting in the character either straight up dying or getting infected, resulting in later death when you're back at the shelter. Speaking of the shelter, base building. There are dozens and dozens of locations to scavenge, but also plenty of opportunities to make certain places your base/shelter. Sticking to one place isn't much of an option, as the game often pushes you to new locations, both by giving you quests located in different parts of the map, but also the fact that at one point you've basically bled all of the scavenging options around your shelter dry, and you need to move on to find new ones. Earlier I mentioned workbenches. When you get to a hideout, there's basically nothing there, even though some of them will have other abilities than others. Some of them can distill alcohol, others can grow plants, but at the end of the day, all of them will have at least one bed and one workbench. You use this workbench to create new options like cooking stations, communal zones, dismantling areas, stuff like that. Some survivors are better suited for these tasks than others, as some people gain more resources from dismantling, others can only cook complete slop, others make very inefficient barriers, so on and so forth. As zombie attacks on your shelter get more severe the longer you stay, this is technically another reason to move out as soon as possible too. Now, this gameplay loop makes sense, but can get a bit annoying. The reason for this is that the escape quests I mentioned earlier, but yeah, also the character quests often have you travel all over the map to complete them, right? Sure, makes sense, as this is the developer's way of actually forcing you to progress, so to speak. But as traveling to one hideout still takes one turn, if you can call it that, you having to, for example, travel from one side of the map to the other side of the map completely destroys all of your survivors' needs. Meaning you can easily take 5 minutes just to move to a safe house, wait for it to load, make all of your survivors sleep, get their stomachs full, find ways to replenish their morale, then wait another turn, move to another safe house, get all of their needs up again, and yeah, you get the gist of it. It's just rinse and repeat. Do that 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 times in a row, and it gets very tedious. Because except for getting your survivors' needs fixed, there's nothing else to really do in these shelters. Unless you are either working or sleeping, there's fuck all to do in these shelters. And let's be honest, we already do plenty of that stuff in real life. It also doesn't help that you cannot place workbenches, communal areas, or beds or whatever, wherever you like. And that you manually have to make every character move over to them to perform a task. This is doable with only 1 or 2 survivors, but near the end game when you have like 6, 7 or 8 of them, it just becomes unnecessarily chaotic and time consuming. It also doesn't make these shelters feel like much of a home to your survivors, and for a game that does not have the most intricate gameplay loop, you really do need more reasons for me to care about my base and the survivors in that base. Speaking of the survivors though, you get to pick from multiple starting scenarios. These range from a married couple to siblings to people who just happen to be working together when shit hit the fan. The game warns you that not all survivors are to be trusted, but I've picked up major pieces of shit who from the get-go basically admitted to screwing over their last group of survivors and not wanting to share anything with other people, and still nothing really happened when I played with these characters. Maybe this is RNG based or they simply died before anything bad could happen, I don't know, but giving these characters some more well, the character would be quite nice. All characters kind of feel the same, unfortunately. A classic example of everybody feeling the same is the fact that it doesn't really matter too much, from what I could tell at least, if you're beating the snot out of a zombie as a 5'3" girl or a 6'4" man. Everybody punches the same, runs the same, has the same animations, they even have the exact same copy and pasted dialogue when meeting new people. This could surely be a budget-related thing, I get that, but it does not help with creating a unique experience to say the least. This is in general the biggest problem you will run into with both the Origin survivors and the ones you randomly run into. That being, they all kind of boil down to the same person, but just with different faces. In my first playthrough, Hau's sister died. Their whole character arc, or like their story, revolves around the two of them sticking together, even to the point where his survivor quest ensures he needs to find enough money to make sure he can create a new life for the two of them after they escape the city. So then you would think her dying would have like major consequences or at least some unique dialogue, but no, I just gave him a 6-pack of beer and he forgot about the whole thing 2 days later. Another example is that characters also, funnily enough, tend to then just become completely depressed when, for example, a survivor dies who has only been with them for like 12 hours. It's not the end of the world, man, but examples like these do ensure that I sincerely don't care about these characters at all, which is kind of contradictory as I've just spent like weeks making sure they are all well fed and get their mandatory 8 hours of bed rest in every single night. That is not to say that developers aren't on the right track. A nice addition, for example, is the fact that if one of your characters die, you can bump into their zombie-like form later during your playthrough, and your character will even comment about it. It's the little things, but these type of things do really add immersion to the gameplay. I would definitely like to see more of this, especially more interactions with NPCs that aren't friendly whatsoever. Just as I was gonna upload this video, they updated the morality system, but after playing around with it for a bit, let me tell you, it's still far from perfect. To name the bad things first. Now, things like injuries or sleep deprivation completely destroy a character's morale, and low morale makes them leave the shelter. But as you often pick survivors up with already issues like injuries or low needs, they'll join you for like a single night, and as you might not have the bandages, the health kits, the morale boosters, etc. to immediately fix their issues, they'll be gone within a single turn. So this definitely still needs some tweaking for sure. On top of that, characters can now also gain positive traits if they're happy, but also negative traits if they're unhappy. Trust me, they'll be more likely to be unhappy than happy, and the unhappy traits are a lot more punishing than that the positive traits are complementary. It's not all bad though, but in the same update they also added a romance system, and characters can now get friendlier or unfriendlier with each other depending on how they perform. They also added some shelter events to add some simple choice and consequence to the game, and let's be honest, these things are always nice, or maybe even mandatory in games like these. So to summarize, the game is fairly well polished, but there's still a lot of jankiness that needs to be cleaned up. If you're really into stealth and being careful with what to do with your resources, this game is definitely for you. But if you're hoping for Sims-like interactions with the other survivors or a very in-depth hack and slash experience, you might want to sit this one out. At the very least until more updates have hit the game. For now though, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's priced at only $25 and often goes on sale for like $20 on Steam, which I think is very reasonable, even for an early access game. I'm pretty hyped to see what the developers still got cooking, and I'll be keeping a close eye on it. Whenever some more proper updates have been released, I'll be sure to hit you guys with an updated video around that time. For now though, I hope you enjoyed, and see ya!